In the dimly lit alleys and forgotten corners of the city, where the sounds of the world beyond seemed muffled and distant, there lived a man named Jacob. His story began not with grand ambitions, but with a quiet struggle for survival. Born into poverty, Jacob's early years were defined by the harsh realities of a world where survival wasn't guaranteed, and dreams were often out of reach. His parents, overwhelmed by their own battles, were too consumed to offer the love or guidance he desperately needed. Meals were scarce, and warmth a rare luxury. Jacob wandered these streets for hours as a child, watching the lives of the privileged unfold behind gleaming windows. His heart ached with a desire for a life different from his own, one filled with food, laughter, and hope. But his reality was a bitter one: hunger, isolation, and a sense of abandonment. No one had taught him the value of hard work or hope. The only thing Jacob had in abundance was desperation. At first, Jacob's crimes were small, almost insignificant, just a candy bar here, a wallet there. But as time passed, these petty thefts began to feed something darker inside him, a hunger for power, control, and the fleeting thrill that came with taking what wasn't his. With every theft, his sense of satisfaction grew until it wasn't enough anymore. As Jacob's crimes escalated, so did the darkness inside him. Each theft, once thrilling, left him more hollow. The faces of his victims, tear-streaked and frantic, began to haunt him. He could hear their voices, desperate and confused, calling the police, searching for the things he had taken. One night, after stealing a diamond necklace from a woman, he saw the despair in her eyes. It was then that Jacob realized he wasn't just stealing from the rich, he was stealing from himself. One night, Jacob found himself at a mansion, a perfect target, a wealthy businessman's home, meticulously planned. He had studied this man for weeks, learned his patterns, and waited for the right moment to strike. But as he crept through the mansion's halls, something unexpected happened. The soft sound of a child's laughter stopped him in his tracks. In that moment, something inside Jacob cracked. He saw the child, her face alight with joy, and for the first time in years, he remembered his own childhood. The days when he had laughed and played without a care. He realized he wasn't just stealing from the rich, he was stealing from the man he could have been. That night, Jacob walked away from the mansion empty-handed. He didn't take a thing. He had crossed a line, and he knew that he could never go back. The road ahead wasn't easy. The temptation to return to his old life was strong, but Jacob was determined to change. Years passed, and Jacob rebuilt his life, one small step at a time. He worked with his hands, took odd jobs, and learned the value of hard work. Each day was a battle, but with every small victory, he grew stronger. And one day, standing on the streets he once haunted, he looked out at the world, and it seemed different now. As Jacob walked through the streets, a young boy caught his eye. The child watched a toy he couldn't afford, his eyes filled with longing. Jacob smiled softly, recognizing the pain in those eyes. He had been there once, but now he knew the way forward, through perseverance, honesty, and the choices one makes. Jacob had finally learned the value of living honestly. No longer a thief, but a man who had faced his demons and emerged stronger. He carried with him the one thing he had always sought: peace.